Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Lunch and Learn, and a big thank you to Paul J. Reed and Watson Realty for sponsoring today's Lunch and Learn in memory of Paul's grandmother, Lubov Telman Bogdanov. May her memory be for a blessing, and all the Torah that we learned today elevate her soul. Again, thank you, Paul Reed, Watson Realty, for sponsoring in memory of Paul's grandmother, Luba. So we're going to talk about Shavuot, right? But to talk about Shavuot, we have to have a little background about Shavuot. We have to have a little background about what really the depth behind Shavuot is. You know, we all familiar with Shavuot to a certain degree. We all enjoy the cheesecake. Who doesn't enjoy cheesecake, right? Come on. And we all enjoy good cheesecake. We all enjoy good dairy meal, right? Lasagna. I personally like eggplant parmesan. For all those out there, I'm a big eggplant parmesan carnivore. Not carnivore, but I like eggplant parmesan. And there are other yummy dairy meals, which we usually don't have on Shabbat. Usually on Shabbat we have meat meals, right? So Shavuot has something to do with dairy. What's the connection to dairy? That's something we have to figure out. Right? Because of course, in Judaism, there's no just because, right? As we talked about in the past, there is always some kind of correlation in between the food and a holiday. Right? There's always some kind of correlation. Pesach is matzah, right? Rosh Hashanah is dipping apples in honey, and other things like that. Purim is hamantashen and other foods. Hanukkah is things with oil. There's always some kind of correlation with some kind of food. And Shavuot is connected to milk products. Cheesecake, that's where cheesecake comes from. So why is there a connection in between Torah, Shavuot, the receiving of the Torah, and milk? What's the connection? That's one thing we have to think about to get a deeper understanding. The other thing I want to talk about is this custom that we have to stay up all night, right? And a lot of you have participated in our all-night learning. Unfortunately, this year looks like we're not going to be able to host it in Eitz Chaim. We'll have to see what we can do individually. Maybe people should do it, right? Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be able to host an all-night learning here this year like we have in the past with speakers and people saying different Torahs. We have to come up with some kind of innovative idea, probably before Shavuot, because we can't do anything live on Shavuot. But what is this idea? Why do we stay up all night? Where does it come from? What's the idea of staying up all night? Why don't we stay up all night Pesach? I mean, the Seder does take you pretty long, right? But there's no thing of staying up all night. Right? It just depends how long your Seder goes, and it depends on where you eat your Seder, right? This year my Seder was a little shorter than past years because it was just my family. So the Manishtana took a lot shorter because there was only 4 kids saying the Manishtana, and not, thank God, 15 kids saying the Manishtana. But there is no mitzvah, there is no custom of staying up all night. It just depends how long your Seder goes. Holiday of Shavuot, there's a custom, a tradition brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, right? It's brought down to stay up all night. The Shabura brings it, and others bring this custom of staying up all night. Why do we stay up all night? What's the reason behind it? That's question number 2. Question number 3 that I want to talk about today is there's a fascinating halacha, a fascinating law. The law goes like this. And the law is that there's an argument in the Talmud, right? There's an argument in the Talmud and says that on a holiday, on your typical holiday, could one fast or not? And is there an obligation to eat something? Is there an obligation to have a delicacy on that holiday? So we know that you're supposed to make kiddush and you're supposed to make hamotzi on Passover, on all other holidays, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shabbat, you're supposed to. But if one wants to fast, could one fast? So there's a disagreement, right? On holidays, on Shabbat, we know if one needs to fast for whatever reason, right? You're supposed to fast for the fast that you fast, and it's complicated. law, and I don't want to get into it right now. But on other holidays, this is an argument. Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua, two rabbis of the Mishnah era, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua. One says that, no, you're not allowed to fast. It's a holiday. You're supposed to have delicacies. You're supposed to have lachem, means for yourself, not just l'shamayim, not just for heaven, but you're also supposed to enjoy the day yourself. And the other one holds, no, you're allowed to fast. You're allowed to. No, it's a holiday. It's a time of getting more spiritual. It's a time of getting closer to God. And if your way of getting closer to God is by fasting, go ahead and fast. Says the Talmud, and this is where the interesting halacha comes in. Says the Talmud, you know where they both agree that you're not allowed to fast? And the language of the Talmud is that you have kula lachem, that you have to have lachem, that you have to have for yourself. You know where that only holiday? The holiday of Shavuot. The holiday of Shavuot. The holiday when we receive the Torah. The holiday which one would think is like the most spiritual. One should connect at a spiritual level. The holiday of when Moses was up in heaven without eating or drinking for 40 days. The holiday of spirituality. That says the Talmud, everybody agrees, you have to eat something. You have to have lachem. You have to have for yourself. Question is obvious. I would have thought maybe, Passover, freedom, coming out, our physical freedom, we should have something. Maybe the holiday of Sukkot, we're living in the desert, we're being saved, our physical bodies were also saved. The holiday of Shavuot, the holiday of all spiritual, the holiday of staying up all night, learning Torah, that's the holiday that we have to make sure that you eat something? Why is that? So we have three questions that we're going to go into, and hopefully we'll show a connection between all of them. And hopefully through answering these questions, give us a deeper and more meaningful insight into this holiday of Shavuot, which is very short, one day, right? Here in America, it's 2 days because we have 2 days because we're out of the land of Israel. But biblically, it's 1 day, and in Israel, they keep it 1 day. So what's behind this mystical holiday, and why? Again, question number one was what's with milk? Why are we connecting to milk, cheesecakes, and others? Again, I like eggplant parmesan. All right, why is there a custom staying up all night? Question number two, where does it come from? What's the idea? And question number three is why on this holiday does everybody agree that you have to eat something? Where on other holidays, it's an argument. Maybe you don't have to eat. It becomes spiritual through connecting to God, through fasting. But on this holiday, the holiday of receiving the Torah, no, everybody agrees that you have to eat something. Why is it? So I want to work backwards. I want to answer the last question, and then we'll go through the other questions. So the commentaries say something very powerful. The commentaries, and we've hinted to this idea through other topics that we spoke about, some morning minutes things, and we've touched upon this, but I want to expand on this a little bit today. Right? What's the idea of this holiday? What's the idea that on this holiday, on the holiday of Shavuot, Chag HaShavuot, right? The holiday of Shavuot, one has to eat something. Say the commentaries that the background of our existence in this world and the background of the essence of who we are. We talked about this many times, right? We're physical and we're spiritual, right? Our physical body, our hands, our face, right? And our spiritual, our soul, our neshama, right? And what is our purpose? Our purpose is to elevate ourselves and to get closer to God and to connect our spiritual soul and to elevate ourselves. Say the commentaries, how does one connect? How does one able to go ahead and transform the physical into something spiritual? How does that? We have physical, we have spiritual, right? Go to head monastery and meditate and fast. Okay, you become spiritual. Relieve yourself of your physical desires. Move away from the physical world. That's what we do on Yom Kippur, right? In Judaism, that's not how we become to the highest level of spirituality. Yes, Yom Kippur reaches very high, and 1 day a year. We're not talking about Yom Kippur right now. But in Judaism, the way we become more spiritual is, and I'm going to say this a little harsh, a little strong, we indulge in the physical. Now, of course, we don't indulge in the physical, right? That's putting no spirituality into it. But we live in the physical world. We take the physical world and we elevate it. We talked about this many times, but it's important to repeat this idea because this is the answer to the question. In Judaism, we become spiritual by taking the physical and we elevate it. We take the physical and we make it something special. We take 4 species on the holiday of Sukkot, which are an etrog, lulav, hadas, haravos, a willow branch, a date branch, citric fruit, right? Merlin branch. We take these different physical, and we make it spiritual. We have deep concepts behind it and the meaning behind it. And we go ahead and we shake them together and we connect the Jewish people, 4 types of Jewish people, right? 4 parts of our body. And we have deep Kabbalistic, mystical concepts behind it. And we elevate it. And we take these physical, now they're a mitzvah. To the extent that the Talmud, the commentaries tell us, and the halacha written down, the one's not supposed to just throw these things out. After you use it for a mitzvah, there's an infusion of spirituality in the 4 species, and not just supposed to throw it in the garbage. There's a custom of burning the lulav and the aravos in the fire that you use to burn the chametz, or Pesach. If you can't wait that long, right, we go ahead and you're supposed to put it in a bag, in a separate bag, and then throw it out to show respect. You're not just throwing it out with the regular garbage. Double bag it. But the essence of these species, these physical things, now have spirituality into it. That we go ahead and we have to work with it as if there's spirituality, on a lower level of spirituality. Yeah, you cover it over and you throw it out. But we can infuse spirituality into it. The same way, this book, the Siddur, right? It's this paper. It was part of a tree. It's a little piece of cardboard. But when you infuse it with words, holy words, and you have the right intentions, it now becomes something spiritual. We give it a kiss, right? We don't go ahead and just leave it on the ground. We show respect for it. With a chumash and any holy books. With our tzitzis. Right? Streams, garments. Now it has holiness. We go ahead and we take the most physical things and we elevate it to spiritual. We infuse spirituality to it with our actions, with our intent, and we make it something spiritual. That is how we get to the highest level of spirituality. The actions that we do, you have a piece of cloth and you put it on your head as a kippah. Now it's something spiritual. Something that is being used for something spiritual. Whatever it is that you're using, whatever it is that you're doing to create something spiritual, and you're infusing it now, there's different levels of spirituality, of course. Let's say for Torah, right, it has the highest level of spirituality. You can't even let it fall on the floor. You have to hold it. We keep our clothes out of respect that it's not just out in the open. Now, the question is, how do these things become spiritual? How do we have this energy of taking something physical and making it something spiritual? Where does that come from? Say the commentaries, the Torah that God gave us, the Torah that He got on the holiday of Shavuot. That is the key. That is the mechanism of how we go ahead and we infuse spirituality in something physical. Same way, there's foods that have impure spiritual things, and there's foods that have things that allow us to become more spiritual, and then there's neutral. Because the Torah said these things have unspiritual, that's why we're not supposed to eat them. These things have more spiritual, like foods for the Kohen and things like that, or matzah, there's a mitzvah. And then there's things that are neutral. They're not good or bad, and we can eat them. The Torah goes ahead and establishes, and God created us and gave us the opportunity to go ahead and infuse spiritual in the physical. And that's what we do with ourselves. Every time we do a mitzvah, every time we put on tefillin, or we wear a kippah, right? Or we speak properly, or we say a blessing, right? Or we give tzedakah. Anytime we do anything that's a mitzvah, something that God wants us to, or we refrain from doing something, we're infusing within ourselves spirituality. And we're going ahead and elevating the physical. And that's the highest level of spirituality. That's the highest level of what we're supposed to do. And therefore, say the commentaries, the holiday of Shavuot, answer question number one, and then we'll get to question number two. The holiday of Shavuot has much more than just receiving the Torah. Of course, that's not just. There's much more than receiving the Torah. What it means by receiving the Torah, we've got the mechanism. God gave us the key. God gave us the ability to go ahead and elevate the physical and make the physical something spiritual and not have to be in a monastery, not have to refrain from our physical to become holy and more spiritual. But on the contrary, making sure that we use the physical properly to go ahead and elevate the physical. That's what the holiday of Shavuot also represents, the deeper part of the holiday of Shavuot. So now it answers it beautifully. Why on this holiday does everybody agree that you have to eat something, you have to have enjoyment, you have to have lachem, you have to have for yourself? Because we are showing that we become holy on this holiday through elevating the physical. Yes, there is. It's easier for us to connect the spirituality when we refrain from the physical. Yom Kippur and fasting. One could connect to a deeper level. You're removing yourself from the physical. But the holiday of Shavuot tells us that we could get onto even a higher level of spirituality. We go ahead and elevate the physical. So therefore, everybody agrees you have to eat something. You have to go ahead and take a delicacy and eat it and say, I am realizing that today is the day that God gave us a special gift, the Torah, that allows us to eat physical, to eat something, to be involved in the physical, but elevate into something spiritual. And that's part of the essence of the day. And therefore, one has to eat something. Beautiful idea. New insight. To make sure we have the right intentions. To make sure we make a blessing on it. We have to make sure we're eating something kosher. Can't make a blessing on something that's not kosher. We have to make sure that we're doing it within the confines of what the Torah tells us, but we're going ahead and elevating it and making it something spiritual. To answer question number one. What was question number three? What was question number two? Question number two is, why do we stay up all night? Where does this custom come from? So the commentaries tell us that there was a Rabbi Yosef Cairo. Right? One night in Shavuot, he was learning all night, and an angel, a spiritual thing came to him beyond our comprehension, came to him and said, how worthy are you that you're fixing what the Jewish people messed up on the night of the eve of receiving the Torah, the night of Shavuot. What happened? The Midrash tells us that night they went to sleep. Right? They received the Torah at dawn, at Netzachama, at the beginning of the day. Right in the beginning of the day when the sun comes up, sunrise, not dawn, sunrise. That's when God gave the Ten Commandments. And it says that the Jewish people overslept. Can you imagine that? Overslept. We've all overslept in our lives, right? Coming late to services a little bit, coming late to class, coming late to work, right? Even sometimes overslept and missed a flight. Usually that doesn't happen. But the Jewish people overslept in this one-time event, a world event of God giving us the Torah, God speaking to us and giving us the Ten Commandments. And the Midrash says that they overslept. They overslept. It was a fault in the Jewish people that they overslept. Therefore, tradition has developed to rectify this. We stay up all night and we pray with the morning service by night, by sunrise, to fix this idea, to say, look, we're not oversleeping. We're going to make sure that we're ready to be vessels and be up and ready to receive the Torah. And how the best to receive the Torah is by learning. Therefore, right, we go ahead. The custom is to stay up all night and to learn. Not Pesach, not here, not there. Of course, it's always good to stay up all night. In yeshiva, we used to stay up every Thursday night. Right? Yeah, we used to stay up every Thursday night and learn. There's an idea of Thursday night before Shabbat, right? To learn more, right? And we used to stay up a lot, right? Thursday nights and pray with sunrise, Friday morning, take a little nap, and then go back to the yeshiva to learn. But this is in part of our tradition, and everybody's supposed to stay up on it. Of course, only if you can. You can't go to sleep and wake up the next morning refreshed. right? Stay up a little bit, learn a little bit, but it's not halakha, it's a tradition to fix this thing that the Jewish people overslept. Ask the commentaries, how could the Jewish people sleep? How could they oversleep? Like, I wouldn't be able to sleep all night. You know, I know when I have an early morning flight, which I've had, I hate early morning flights. You know why? Not because it's early morning. On the contrary, it's nice. You get out, you get to where you have to go. But I have a hard time sleeping that night. I wake up 3-4 times in the middle of the night. Am I going to miss it? I wake up too late. All right, oh my God, it's only 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, just get up and get out already. All right, I'll sleep in the airport. Because, you know, I don't want to make sure that I don't wake up late. So how could the Jewish people oversleep? How could they oversleep? How could they do such a thing? Say the commentaries. Something very powerful. Say the commentaries. You know what's going on over here? You know what's happening? The Jewish people, yes, there were anticipation of receiving the Torah, of course. Yes, they were waiting to this mind-boggling event, a transformation event of God speaking to them. But the Jewish people were still involved. They were still coming from Egypt. They were a slave-minded nation, right? They were still connected to the physical world. They were still feeling that their physical world had an importance without the spiritual. Torah, of course, transformed that, changed that. But they were working on it. And that's the 49 days of going from Pesach till Shavuot to be able to take care of that. Right? That was the whole purpose. But they were still working on it. The idea of them sleeping in, sleep is when one is is completely out of control of himself. When you're sleeping, you're not in control. When you're sleeping, you're like dead to the world, as the saying goes. Right? A dead person has no spiritual force in it. Tradition tells us that when we're sleeping, we're as if partly dead. Part of our neshama goes up to heaven. That's why the tradition is that we wash our hands. And we wake up in the morning, because sort of that impurity is in our fingers, right? When our soul comes back in, and the impurity of death is in our fingers on a Kabbalistic concept, right? So therefore, that's where the tradition and the halakha, it's brought down to code of Jewish law, to wash our hands when we wake up in the morning. Because one is sleeping, one is dead to the world, one is completely physical. Say the commentaries, it's possible, of course, they probably did wake up late. But it's also a metaphor. It's a metaphor of the Jewish people, right, still being involved in their physical. Even when they were on the doorstep of receiving the Torah, they were still connected to the physical. And then they had this transformation into an all-spiritual, as the Midrash tells us also, right, that the Jewish people told Moshe, we can't handle it. Part of the Torah, they told Moshe, we can't handle it. Right? You speak to us. Let you be the translator from God. And the Midrash tells us that their souls departed from them when God was speaking, because they were not able to sync their physical body yet with their spiritual soul to the highest level. And that's what sleep represents. Sort of, we're all sleeping. We're taking a nap. We're sleeping when we can look around ourselves and see God's involvement in every aspect of our lives. They were sleeping. It's a metaphor to all of us when we're sleeping. When, God forbid, there's a soldier that's killed from rocks not too long ago, a couple of days ago. When God forbid, the whole financial world and our whole culture and our whole advance in technology comes to a halt almost. And we're coming, this person, that person, of course, there's physical reasons, and there's reasons within the confines of the physical world. But we're sleeping at the wheel and not realizing that God is involved in every aspect. And you're going to ask me, so how could God do this if it hurts other people? And that's not our class. And it's a good question. The class of why does bad things happen to good people? And I can't answer that right now. It's too long of a conversation. But that's the topic for another time. But we have to realize that this is godly. There's a spiritual force. There's something beyond our comprehension. Let's not be sleeping at the wheel. That's what the Jewish people were doing on their level. they were sleeping that night before receiving the Torah. There should have been an anticipation of a spiritual force. Should have been, we can't sleep. Now, they woke up late. They didn't wake up late. What exactly happened? But the lesson behind it is that we have to make sure that we're not sleeping at the wheel. We have to make sure that we look around ourselves and say, hey, what are we doing with our lives? How are we able to make sure that we connect our spiritual force? How do we make sure that we look at ourselves and say, hey, we have a physical part of ourselves. God created us physical. We have physical things around ourselves. How are we going to make sure that we put that into spiritual forces? The Torah gives us that. And therefore, we learn all night to, as much as we can, to say, God, we realize that the Torah that you gave us, the learning Torah, the being part of Torah, doing the mitzvos, allows us to connect and to make sure that we don't fall asleep at the wheel. Make sure that we reflect in our lives and say, hey, where's God in our lives? Where's God in our lives? That is one of the lessons that one has to learn and reflect on when we think about what happened when the Jewish people are sleeping. When we learn all night, make sure that we wake up and say, we're not going to fall asleep at the wheel. We're going to reflect around ourselves and say, hey, where is God in our lives? So that answers question number 2, and that connects to question number 3. We're able to make sure that we don't fall asleep by realizing the Torah is the avenue for us to infuse spirituality into our physical life and look around and say, hey, there is spirituality in there. We have to make sure we do it in the right way. So what's with milk? What's with milk? Right? So actually, Torah is compared to milk sometimes. Right? There are times when Torah is compared to milk. And why is that? There's many reasons. Now, I want to talk about one idea of milk. Milk is a fascinating thing. Right? Cow milk, of course, right? It's a fascinating thing. It comes from a cow, right? I don't know the science, I'll be honest, right? But I know somehow the cow eats and it develops and then we squeeze it out, right? And we get milk. And if you leave it around, it becomes into cheese, it gets harder. We make cheese out of it, we make cream cheese out of it, right? It curls. Milk is a fascinating thing. It comes from something that's meat, and we call it milk, right? And halacha, actually, you're not allowed to mix milk and meat together, right? You can't mix milk and meat together. That's a prohibition. What do you mean? The milk came from the cow, right? Why can't you mix the milk from the cow? I'm not going into all the deep reasons behind the halacha, but milk is a fascinating thing if you start thinking about it. Okay, water comes from a stream, right? Other things come from the fruit juice, comes from the fruits. But milk is something that it comes from the cow. It's its own thing, right? And you can't even mix it with the cow. It's considered a whole new entity. It's a fascinating thing. So why is Torah compared to milk? Why is there a custom on the holiday of Shavuot to eat milk? Right? The holiday of Torah, the holiday of spirituality. There's many different explanations, but I want to suggest one idea. And the idea goes like this, and we'll end with this and we'll recap everything. The idea is like this. As we said, right, milk is an outcome of something else, right? The outcome of things being developed in the cow, right? And again, I don't know the science, and then it comes out from the cow, right? And then it's a new entity. And it depends on how much you just leave it sit. If it curls, and you could make cream cheese and other things out of it, or you make sure that you keep on stirring it and it stays in milk. But the idea, the commentaries explain that what is Torah compared to milk? Why is there Shavuot as a time? Because one has to realize that the Torah that we have, we are developing our own Torah. And when we go ahead and we start connecting to the Torah, it depends on what we have, depends on how much we work on it. The Torah is there, right? The Torah is everywhere. The mitzvahs that God gave us. Right? The rabbis could teach you, could learn from different legitimate websites, right? There's a lot behind it. But the concept is that we have to realize that we're developing it. We're sort of squeezing it out, And we have to go ahead and make it. Are we going to keep it going as milk? Right? Is it going to turn into cheese? Those are fine. Those are all good, but we have to make sure it doesn't spoil. And we have to make sure that the milk, the Torah that we develop within ourselves is legitimate Torah. It's Torah that is pure. It's Torah that is clear like milk. And milk gets a little, right? It's not good. It starts spoiling very quickly. Milk. We have to develop it within ourselves. And the idea of that is that, again, connecting to the other things that we spoke about, right, is because the way we connect to all this is by realizing that we have to go ahead and develop our Torah. It's up to us to develop our Torah. We have to have guidance, and we have to make sure that we're doing it in the proper way. But we have to go ahead and we have to develop our Torah. We have to go ahead and squeeze it out. Right? We have to go ahead and make sure that it works with us. We have to make sure that we infuse it into our daily activities, into our business, into our lives. And that's one of the ideas of connecting. There's many ideas in milk, and I don't want to get too much into it. I just wanted to talk about this small connection. That milk is fascinating. Water, you just leave water, it's fine, right? It doesn't really get. Fruit juice, you leave it, okay, sometimes it's not okay. You leave it for too long, but if you have natural fruit juice, it stays for a very long time. Milk is something that spoils very quickly. Spoils very quickly. It's fascinating. It spoils very quickly. And because if we don't work on it, we don't develop it, we don't make it ourselves, we want to make it part of ourselves, then the Torah that we have is going to start spoiling. We're not going to be able to develop it and make it part of ourselves. So let's recap. We asked 3 questions, and we gave 3 answers. Question number 1, we asked, what was with milk? Why is milk so connected to the holiday of Shavuot? Question number 2 was, why do we stay up all night? Why in this holiday is there a deeper idea of staying up all night, right, and learning Torah? Question number 3 was, right, what does it mean, right, that there's everybody agrees that on this holiday you have to eat something, right? Not going through the whole thing, listen to the beginning, but what does that mean? But that was the question, why does everybody agree that you have to eat something? And we answered, we went backwards. Question number 3 is because this is the holiday that gives us opportunity to transform the physical into something spiritual, and that's true spirituality. And therefore, we're eating something to show that we are able to change the physical into something spiritual. Question number 2, staying up all night. The Jewish people slept through that night. They did or didn't, but it's a metaphor. It's something for us to reflect and to make sure that we don't sleep through the night. We don't sleep, make sure we're not sleeping at the wheel, and recognize that God is around us all the time. Everything that's happening, right, is supposed to awaken us and tell us, hey, make sure that we connect to our God. And how do we do that? Through the Torah. And question number 3, why do we eat milk? And I said there's many answers. One of the ideas is milk is something that spoils very quickly. And if you don't work on it, you don't develop it, you don't make it into something else, right, then it spoils. And the Torah that we receive, we have to make sure that it doesn't spoil. We have to make sure that we make it part of ourselves, to make sure that it is from us, right, with guidance. And how do we do that? Through learning Torah and realizing that the Torah is part of our everyday life. So wherever we go, we can learn Torah. Wherever we go, we could be practicing Torah. We're in a kippah, we're in tzitzis, right? Kissing a mezuzah, making a blessing over kosher food. Whatever it is, wherever we go, we could be part of Torah, making sure that it doesn't spoil. So hopefully with these ideas, right, we are able to connect to a more deeper part of Shavuot. Realize that Shavuot is a holiday that allows us to truly live throughout the year, to truly be awake and develop ourselves into something that we're supposed to be, closer to God through the physical world, but through the Torah physical world. Wishing everyone a beautiful day. Again, thank you, Paul Reed and Watson Realty, for sponsoring in memory of Paul's grandmother, right, Luba. May her memory be for a blessing. And thank you all. I'm now going to